I found a group chat on my boyfriend's phone that explained the sick game he was playing with me, so I made sure I was the winner. Nate was the perfect boyfriend. Like about a week before everything fell apart, he showed up at my locker with a bag from this tiny bakery 20 minutes from his house. I had mentioned one time in the car that their cinnamon rolls were my favorite, and that was 3 months ago, and I didn't even think he was listening. He handed me the bag and kissed me on the forehead and told me, "You said Tuesdays are your worst day, so I figured you could use these." I almost cried in the middle of the hallway over a bag of cinnamon rolls, and I didn't even care who saw. That was the Nate I knew. 5 months of good morning texts that weren't lazy GM messages but full sentences about things that reminded him of me. 5 months of my mom telling me she'd never seen me this happy. 5 months of walking down the hallway feeling like the luckiest girl in the building, and then 5 minutes of watching him become somebody I'd never met before. Nate took me to a nice restaurant for our 5-month anniversary, and his 2 best friends Colton and Wes happened to be there with their girlfriends. We pushed the tables together and made it a group thing, which was fine. I was having a great time until Nate looked across the table at me while I was eating and went, "Babe, honestly, that top is not doing you any favors. You look about 2 sizes bigger than you are, and I'm telling you this because I love you and nobody else is going to." The table went dead silent. Every single person stopped chewing at the same time. I put my fork down and stared at him because this was not a thing Nate had ever done before in the entire time I'd known him. "What did you just say to me?" "Relax, I'm helping you. I'd rather be the boyfriend who tells you the truth than the boyfriend who lets you walk around like that." Colton and Wes were watching me like they were waiting for something, and I could feel my face getting hot and my eyes starting to sting, but I refused to cry in front of these people. I picked my fork back up and finished my food without saying another word, while my hands shook the entire time. On the drive home, I told Nate that what he did at dinner was humiliating and cruel, and he looked at me with this confused puppy expression, like I was the one being unreasonable. "I was literally just being honest with you because I love you. Would you rather I let you walk around looking like that while everyone at the table is thinking it and nobody has the guts to say it?" I told him to take me home, and he dropped me off and sent me a text 20 minutes later that read, "I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings, but I was only trying to help. That's what good boyfriends do." Something felt wrong about the whole thing, but I couldn't name it because the words sounded right even though the feeling was completely off. The next week, my best friend Ren was having a birthday party, and I'd been planning to go for a month. The morning of, Nate called and told me he had planned something special for us that night and couldn't tell me what it was, but he needed me to skip Ren's party. "Nate, it's her birthday, and I told her weeks ago I was coming. And I've been planning this surprise for longer than that. It's one night and she'll understand, unless she's not really your friend." I felt guilty, which is insane looking back, but I told Ren I couldn't come, and I could hear the disappointment in her voice even though she told me it was fine. Nate picked me up that night and drove me to Colton's house. The surprise was Colton's basement. Nate and Colton played video games for 3 hours while I sat on the couch texting Ren happy birthday and watching Snapchat stories from her party feeling like garbage. When I asked Nate what happened to the special night he'd planned, he didn't even pause his game. "Plans changed, but we're still hanging out though, right? Unless you'd rather be somewhere else." He said it like a threat wrapped in a question, and I sat there staring at the side of his face feeling like I had just failed a test I didn't know I was taking. Nate started FaceTiming me every night after that and pressuring me to tell him I loved him, not in a sweet way, in a weird urgent way where he'd go dead silent and cold if I didn't say it within the first few seconds. Then he brought it up at a party in front of Colton and Wes and at least 30 other people. "Babe, tell everyone what you told me on FaceTime." "What are you talking about?" "That you love me. Say it right now in front of everyone." I looked around the room and everyone was staring at me, and Colton and Wes had that same expression from the restaurant, that watchful waiting look like they were keeping score. "I love you, Nate. See?" he told the room. "That's my girl right there. She'd do anything for me." He high-fived Wes, and something about that high five made my stomach flip because it didn't feel like celebration. It felt like a transaction. Nate and I were at a bonfire a few nights later, and I was talking to a group of people and laughing and having a great time when he grabbed my arm and pulled me away from the group hard enough that I stumbled. He looked me dead in the eyes and told me, "I've been thinking about this for a while, and I think you need to hear it. You're honestly kind of embarrassing when you laugh that loud. People were staring at you and whispering, and it makes me look bad that my girlfriend doesn't know how to act in public. I'm telling you this because nobody else will." I stared at him, and my entire chest caved in, because this was the boy who used to text me that my laugh was his favorite sound in the world. "Are you serious right now?" "I'm trying to help you, Joss. I'm the only person who cares enough to be honest." I felt tears burning behind my eyes, and before I could stop them, they rolled down my cheeks. He watched me cry and didn't move to comfort me. Over his shoulder, I watched Wes glance at Colton and do this tiny nod, like a referee signaling a point, and in that moment, I knew something was happening that was bigger than my boyfriend being a jerk. I went home that night and sat on my bed and scrolled through months of old texts from Nate. "Your laugh is literally my favorite sound in the world. I'm so lucky. You're the most beautiful person I've ever met." The boy in those texts and the boy at the bonfire were 2 completely different people, and the switch had happened so fast that I felt like I was losing my grip on what was real. I started paying attention after the bonfire, and once I knew what to look for, I could not stop seeing it. Every time Nate did something cruel, his friends were nearby. Every time I reacted, someone was watching. The meanness wasn't random because it had a very clear pattern and a rotation. One week it was pressure to say I loved him in front of a crowd. The next week it was public comments about my body or my face. The week after that it was separating me from Ren. I called Ren and told her everything, and she went quiet for a long time. Then she told me something that made me grip my phone so hard my knuckles went white. "Joss, Wes's girlfriend Amira texted me a few days ago asking if Nate had been acting weird. She told me Wes has been doing the exact same things. He made her cry at a party, he told her to stop hanging out with her friends, and he pressured her into telling him she loved him in front of Colton and Nate. She thought she was losing her mind. I hung up and called Amira. She picked up, and the first thing she told me was that Wes had also made her skip a friend's birthday party the same week Nate made me skip Ren's. Same week, same move, different boyfriend. Then she told me something that made the hair on my arms stand up. He made me cry at a party on purpose. He told me my acne was getting bad, and I should probably see a dermatologist before it scars, and he said it loud enough that the people next to us heard. When I started crying, he immediately hugged me and started comforting me like he was the sweet boyfriend helping his insecure girlfriend. Colton was standing right behind him, watching the whole thing. Amira, that is exactly what happened to me at the bonfire. I know, and that's why I'm freaking out. I thought I was being too sensitive, but then Colton's girlfriend Bree told me the same thing is happening to her, and now I don't think any of this is a coincidence. 3 boys, 3 girlfriends, identical cruelty on the same timeline. Me, Amira, and Bree compared notes, and every single thing matched. The public humiliation about our appearance, the isolation from friends, the forced I love you performances, the cruelty followed by the confused denial that made us feel crazy. All 3 boys were running the same playbook like they were following instructions. The night I found out why was an accident. Nate was in the shower and his phone buzzed on the nightstand, and the notification preview showed a message from Colton that read, "Bro, that bonfire play was clean. Tears in under 60 seconds. That's 15 right there." I picked up the phone. His passcode was my birthday. The chat was called The Board, and it had 8 members. Not just Nate, Colton, and Wes, but 5 other boys from our school, all with girlfriends. It was a scoring system with rules and categories and a leaderboard that got updated every single Sunday like a fantasy football league, except the sport was destroying girls. Making your girlfriend cry in public was 10 points. Getting her to skip plans with friends was 15. Getting her to say I love you in front of witnesses was 20. Getting her to apologize after you were cruel to her was 25. Getting her to change something about her appearance because of something you said was 30. Getting her to cut off a friend entirely was 40. Nate was in second place with 165 points. The boy in first had 210. The messages went back 3 months, which meant this game had started before Nate even asked me out. I was a line item. My tears at that bonfire were worth 15 points because he got them in under 60 seconds. My skipped night at Ren's birthday was worth 15. Every I love you I'd been pressured into performing was 20 points being deposited into a competition I didn't know existed. I scrolled through 3 months of messages with my hands shaking and my vision blurring. There were 14 girls' names in that chat. 14 girls being manipulated, scored, and ranked by 8 boys who treated their relationships like a video game, where the high score meant you'd cause the most damage to the person who trusted you. I screenshotted everything and put his phone back down, and when Nate came out of the shower smiling at me, I smiled back because I had already decided what was going to happen next, and he was not going to see it coming. I reached out to every girl on that list. Some of them I knew, and some I'd never spoken to in my life. Every single conversation went the same way. I'd tell them what I found, and they'd go completely silent for a long time. Then they'd start talking, and it would come pouring out like a dam breaking. I thought it was just me. I thought I was being too sensitive. He told me I was crazy for being upset. 14 girls, 8 boys, and not one of us had known the others were going through the same thing. Amira, Bree, and I organized everything. We created our own group chat and named it Game Over. Every girl shared what had been done to her, and which boy had done it and how many points it had been worth. Some of these girls had been dating their boyfriends for almost a year without knowing they were a scoring category. One girl named Felicity told us her boyfriend had gotten her to cut off her 3 closest friends one by one over 4 months because isolation was worth 40 points per friend, and he'd racked up 120 points just off her loneliness. She had nobody left in her life except him, and that was exactly how he designed it. Another girl named Devin told us her boyfriend had deliberately made her cry at her own birthday dinner in front of her entire family because public tears at a significant event were a bonus multiplier worth triple. He insulted her in front of her parents, and her little sister watched her cry into her cake. A girl named Parker told us her boyfriend had convinced her to stop wearing makeup because he preferred the natural look, and then told all 8 boys she was the easiest target in the group because she'd do anything he said. That was worth 30 points. 14 girls sitting in a group chat realizing that every cruel, confusing thing that had happened to them was calculated, strategic, and competitive. We had the screenshots, but we agreed they weren't enough. We didn't want to show people what these boys had done. We wanted the entire school to watch them do it. Colton threw a massive end-of-semester party at his house, and half the school was there. The 8 boys were all in the same room for the first time since we'd found out, and they had no idea what was coming because all 14 of us were still acting like perfect girlfriends. We knew the point categories by heart, and we knew exactly what each boy would try to do at a party because it was the highest scoring environment in their system. Public tears, public I love you performances, and public fights were all worth maximum points because of the audience multiplier. So we let them try. Nate found me in the kitchen 30 minutes in. He looked me up and down, and I could see him loading the insult like a weapon. "Babe, is that what you're wearing? Because honestly, you look like you borrowed your mom's clothes and she's got about 40 pounds on you." I looked at him and smiled and turned to the 15 people standing nearby and announced at full volume, "Nate just earned himself 10 points for trying to make me cry in public. That's how the game works, right, Nate?" His face went completely white. Across the room at the exact same moment, Amira turned to Wes in front of a group of people and went, "Wes is about to ask me to leave this party with him so I can't hang out with my friends tonight." That's 15 points in the group chat called The Board on his phone. Wes looked at her like she'd just pulled a fire alarm. Bree walked up to Colton in the living room where the biggest crowd was gathered. "Colton, why don't you tell everyone what you get for making me say I love you in front of witnesses? Is it 20 points every time? Is that why you always do it at parties?" The room went dead silent. silent. 8 boys frozen in different corners of the same house, realizing at the same time that all 14 of their girlfriends knew everything. One by one, every girl in that room stood next to her boyfriend and told the crowd exactly what had been done to her and how many points it was worth. Felicity stood next to her boyfriend and told the room he'd scored 120 points off her in 4 months by cutting her off from every friend she had until he was the only person left in her life. Devin told everyone her boyfriend deliberately made her cry at her birthday dinner in front of her family because the bonus multiplier made it worth triple, and her little sister had nightmares about it. Parker looked at her boyfriend and told him he'd earned 30 points by convincing her to change the way she looked, and then bragging to 7 other boys about how easy she was to control. The party was dead silent except for the girls' voices, and not a single person in that room was laughing or defending the boys. Nate grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the hallway. "Joss, you don't understand. It was just a joke, and it wasn't even serious. We were just messing around." I pulled my arm back, and the room behind me had gone completely still. "You told me my laugh was embarrassing so you could score 15 points in front of your friends. You made me skip my best friend's birthday so you could score 15 more. You made me say I love you in front of 30 people like I was a dog doing a trick, and you high-fived your friend the second the words came out of my mouth. That wasn't a joke, Nate. That was my life, and you turned it into a game, and you almost won." His mouth opened, and nothing came out. Colton tried to leave through the back door and found 20 people standing on the patio who had already heard everything. Wes was sitting on the couch with his head in his hands because Amira had just told the room that he'd cried when she confronted him privately and begged her not to tell anyone, and then texted the group chat 30 seconds later asking if making your girlfriend feel sorry for you was worth any bonus points. The student body president was one of the 8 boys, and he was standing in the corner of the kitchen watching his entire reputation dissolve while his girlfriend read his messages out loud to a room full of every person who had ever voted for him. By the end of the night, every person at that party knew exactly what the board was, and exactly who was on it, and exactly what it cost every girl who had ever been scored. All 14 of us walked out of that party together. We left the boys standing in the wreckage of their own game and walked down Colton's driveway as a group, and nobody spoke until we got to the street, and then Felicity started laughing, and then Devin started laughing, and then all of us were laughing so hard we were holding on to each other in the middle of the road. By Monday morning, the entire school knew. The group chat got reported to administration, and all 8 boys were suspended. The student body president resigned before the principal could remove him. 2 of the boys lost their scholarship recommendations because the teachers who wrote them heard what happened and pulled the letters. Colton's parents found out and made him stand in front of all the parents at a booster meeting and apologize, and he cried so hard he couldn't finish. Nate texted me 9 times that weekend, and the last one read, "Please just let me explain. You know the real me." I left every single one on red because I did know the real him now, and that was exactly the problem. Ren came over that night, and we sat on my bedroom floor, and I told her everything from the beginning. How I skipped her birthday for a boy who was earning points off my loneliness. How I let someone convince me my own laugh was too loud and my body was too wide because I thought that's what love looked like when it got honest. How I almost lost the most important person in my life for a boy who thought our relationship was a game he could win. Ren grabbed my hand and looked me right in the eyes and told me, "You are the loudest laugher I know, and that has always been my favorite thing about you, and don't you ever let anyone make you quiet." I laughed so loud the neighbors probably heard it, and I did not care who was uncomfortable because that laugh was mine and it was never going to be worth points to anyone ever again.